but sticking with sports and your vast experience. I mean, shit, you've been coaching for how long now?
Oh,
it's been a minute, yo.
Yeah, it has.
Decade?
Yep.
Wow. I mean, so
yeah, it has been. Yep.
You've been coaching. Before that, you played. Like, going away from the professional leagues for a minute. I wanted to have a discussion about youth sports and the culture and the state of youth sports. Start out, and now you're also a dad who has a child, and start out maybe giving us sort of a 10,000-foot view of what you see as a coach first, and then as a parent, and the sort of the state of youth sports.
With social media today and access today, it's starting to water down sports in general, and that's just it's just going to have a natural reflection on youth sports, right? I think as a coach, there's not enough money in youth sports all around. Like, now, if you're in the right area of youth sports, then you can be making some bread. But as far as just generally speaking, there's not enough money in youth sports to get good coaches in youth sports.
So you end up being parents coaching.
Right. And it's always a tricky thing for me because I've coached on so many different levels and for so long. And even as a player, I was always like the point guard, so I was the captain. So I was always a player coach, everything. It's like part of me as a father, I appreciate these fathers who are giving their time, energy, effort into these kids. But then on the flip side, as a coach and knowing what goes into coaching and taking coaching classes and like coaching is so much more complex than people think.
It really is.
And there are people who know the game and understand the game, but when it comes to teaching,
there's a difference.
And helping others understand it. And not only helping others understand it, but understanding that this kid might learn different from this kid. This kid might process information different than this kid. And this goes to all levels.
Yeah, it's essentially at that point it's teaching.
Right, exactly.
That's what coach is.
Right.
And people learn differently.
Right. And just because you're good at a sport doesn't mean you're good at teaching.
A lot of times it's the opposite.
Exactly. I'm not really a fan of the way basketball is played today.
I do know that.
All levels.
That's one thing we have in common.
Right. And I think
Can you say why before you without losing your other train of thought? Because I think that's an interesting thing. What don't you like about the game, the way it's being played?
It's almost like basketball lost its purity to me because I was taught to play a certain way. I think a lot of it might have to do is I was never super flashy. I was never super athletic, but I could always think. So
were you pre and one?
No, I grew up in the N1 era.
Okay, you grew up in the N1
I used to make the tapes and stuff.
Okay, but that came like what
I was
grade
like,
were you in when that came out?
I was like just starting basketball, so I was like,
so you really, so it was the
I
thing.
was like third, fourth, fifth.
But you weren't doing all that shit.
I could, I just never used it.
Right.
Because I learned early on that in basketball when it comes to, and I'm not gonna, I know where I'm at. I'm not gonna lose my point, but I learned early on in basketball and like being on offense, I could conserve energy by simplifying everything that I do.
Right, and you also learn that a ball travels faster in the air than it does on the ground.
Right.
So pass the fucking ball.
Right, that too, but even it's like, I never really had go-to moves because it was like I'm going to catch the ball and whatever foot I see is high, I'm going to immediately try to attack that way off the dribble. Now, depending on what you do is when my counters come in. So I never predetermine moves. I think today a lot of kids come up the court saying I'm going to go through the legs, behind the back, crossover. So now you had them beat on the first move.
But then you're doing that other shit.
Now the second move is bringing you back into the defender. You see what I'm saying?
That must drive you fucking nuts.
And
oh my God.
But even watching though, that's why my people who know me know this. Like it was hard for me to watch CJ McCollum play because
CJ, huh?
Okay. Yeah, because he's not the only one.
As I was watching Jordan Poole play.
He's another one though. He's another one.
He's worse than CJ.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but CJ would always
interesting.
He would have him beat on the first move, and then it's like he would go for the tougher shot. You know what I mean? He would create enough space, and then he would do a sidestep or something.
I don't think I watched him enough to notice that.
But me watching Dame a lot,
exactly.
I used to be pissed off, like, bro, just take the first one you had him beat. But to go back to my earlier point was, because I learned that so early, I wasn't really like, when I needed to bring it out, I could. Like, I never really turned the ball over a lot. It was, you're not going to really steal the ball from me. I can dribble with both hands equally, all of those things. But I just always looked at it like, get off the ball, like you said. Like, and then as a shooter, I used to get mad because when I'm off the ball, if I come off a pin down, that extra dribble you take, you can dribble me out of rhythm.
Yep, absolutely.
And people don't understand that. And I know I'm talking nerd basketball talk. You understand it.
I understand it, yeah.
But it's like,
things like that matter. Which hand do you like to receive the ball in? People don't understand that as a point guard.
Exactly.
If I know you like it to receive on your shooting hand, I'm going to put it there. If I know you like to put on your left and bring it over, I'm going to put it there.
Exactly. But, yeah, so I just think, I don't know, I just think me watching basketball today, to go back to the original question, is it's just hard for me because I'm frustrated.
Right. No, I get
the centers don't go with coming in 3-point line. Everybody
and that frustration exists watching, but because you're such a patient coach, do you still have that frustration as a coach, or that's more just watching it as a spectator?
It doesn't bother me as a coach because I understand that's today's game.
Right.
These kids are going to shoot sidestep 3-pointers. They're just going to do it. And the moment you tell them not to, they're going to transfer.
Wow.
At the high school level.
That's crazy.
Nobody wants to play the post. So you can have a 6'8" kid and his dad is going to be telling you how he needs to be the point guard.
Wow.
And I'm sure it's always been like that, but today it's worse.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, my day for sure.
I'm thinking about it. Who posts up today?
Nobody.
In the NBA.
Positionless basketball.
Yeah, who posts up?
Wow.
So,
and the problem with that is, like, even as a guard, that's a great skill to have. Doesn't matter who, like,
facts.
You should know how to post somebody.
My mid post game was crazy because I was stronger than everybody.
Exactly.
I was fadeaways, all of that.
Yeah.
But the funny part is, so that's one reason of why. And I think, again, this all is a trickle down effect and it affects youth sports. So now the second reason why my relationship with youth sports is weird is because it's a business. And I don't agree with a lot of the business practices in youth sports.
Sure. Can you name one or two that's
everybody's a trainer? Everybody has highlight tapes. When I played, I don't even know. I've never had a YouTube highlight tape.
Right.
And I was on my high school team was number 2 in the country.
Right. No, I get it.
I was known. Everybody knew my name in the basketball, but I've never had a highlight tape. We only had one dude on another team with a highlight tape, and that was Damon Powell because he was a dunker. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, but nowadays everybody got a highlight tape.
That's crazy.
And I think it created a lot of prima donnas in basketball, and a lot of divas in basketball.
Yeah.
And for somebody who grew up being cursed at by my coaches, and like, I don't curse at my kids. I coach a 10-year-old team. They've never heard me curse.
What about your high schoolers?
Oh, what? Every other word was a curse word. But those are the type of kids that I had too. These are two different demographics that I'm coaching too. So they kind of responded to that. But I'm super long-winded.
That's all right.
But yeah, man,
I'm interested in it.
Before I go to the father side of it, I want to hear your father side, and then I'll go because I've been talking forever.
No, I love hearing you talk about this because this is something that you are much close. I mean, my experiences as a father, having a kid in sports, is pretty dated at this point. My oldest son, Napoleon, he finished football in, I think, 2010.
Okay.
And then Dante didn't really play sports. Jalen came out. We had a summer worth of AAU, but that was kind of it. And I mean, I'm just so relieved that Liam is a nerd and likes Legos and not sports, bro. I just I was so my daughter, who's my oldest child, she was a hooper.
Okay.
And, played the AAU circuit, played varsity as a freshman, played varsity all 4 years of high school. Wow. And then my son, Napoleon, who was known as Demetrius Brown Ryan back then, he was a football star. Like, I mean, he was 10th leading rusher in the state. Like, he was a monster, yo. And I coached a little bit. Well, I coached before I had kids. That's sort of how I think when we talked about it in my interview, that's how I changed my life. So I coached when it wasn't my kids. I coached my oldest son's football team a little bit. I coached Dante's little 5-year-old baseball team once, so I've been a dad coach. But I've always haven't liked. I'm with you. I appreciate somebody volunteering their time because if they don't, sometimes nobody will. But I always question why they're doing it. Are you doing it just to take care of your kid? And it can go one of two ways, right? It either goes the person's too easy on their kid, or they're too fucking hard on their kid.
Right.
That's I think I was guilty of that with my oldest son a little bit.
Really?
I remember Tito, Tito used to work for me. He was the head coach and D was the quarterback, and he'd be like, hey, leave my fucking quarterback alone. Like he was like, just stay the fuck away from my quarterback, because I was on his ass. And so you either overcompensate trying to show there's no favoritism, or you just lean into the favoritism.
That's a good point.
So I prefer parents not to be coaches. But I just think for me, the experience of youth sports was just like, the parents more than anything. I would sit on the opposite side for Naprecia's games. I would sit on the opposite side away from, because I didn't want to be around the motherfucking other parents, yo. I just couldn't be around it. It was just like, and girls hoops was weird. Like it was weird, yo. Like
I remember girls hoops used to be so messy, man.
Messy. They don't defer to the alpha. They do the weird, and I say this respectfully, and I've actually had this conversation with women who agree with me. Women aren't always great with each other. That other shit comes into play sometimes. Like when it's us, whoever the best player is, that's the dude.
Right.
We all know that.
Yep.
They don't do that.
That's a good point.
They don't do that.
Yeah.
They do that other shit.
Women hate each other, man.
They do.
That's another
conversation. But I just it wore me out. So by the time the football was over, I was fucking relieved. I was fucking relieved, dude, because I think, the money aspect. I think about the amount of money that I spent on that shit, which I want to get into that conversation later about how much money people are spending pursuing these scholarships. So, that's my long-winded answer is I think it's a sick state. I think that priorities are fucked up. You see these fights happening, which I remember Ryan Coogler and his dad got into a big fight at the fucking football field, man. It was horrible, man. Ryan had to whoop this grown man's ass, yo, because this dude went after Ira. And Ryan was a fuck. If he was he was either 8th grader or a freshman. Ryan fucked this grown ass man up, yo.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you become an adult, because I played youth sports from, I want to say, 5th grade.
And it was basketball and football.
I started off just basketball, and then my 6th grade year I played football, and I played football my 7th grade year, and then I stopped, and then I went straight to basketball.
So no high school football?
No, I didn't play high school football at all. Almost, but good. I had to pick one sport.
Good. And football is a whole nother thing. Like, that's a whole nother thing, the vibe of football.
Yeah. I'm the type of person that's like, once I lose respect for something, it's hard for me to I just view it differently. And that's people, things, professions, college, basketball, all of those things that I started to see certain stuff and how it was really ran.
Right.
And it was just like, it was almost like the curtain was pulled back. And
that was in college, the story of college, or was that in the AAU stuff that you saw?
Well, it's in the AAU stuff too, because when I first finished, when I first got out of college, my first thing was going to be a trainer. I wanted to be a big trainer.
Okay.
And I was living in LA at the time, and I was like, oh, I can do this.
And you're talking about like skills, not like...
Yeah, skill development. Okay. Yeah, not like a physical trainer.
Right.
So, yeah, like skill development. And then I'll never forget, my older cousin's name is Omar. He had like the whole Stockton area on lock. Like huge trainer, like doing his thing. And I called him first, and I was like, look, I'm thinking about jumping into this. Like, what do you think? And he first thing was like, bro, this shit is messy. And he was like, it's going to be people hating on you because of who you are, your name. And he was like, I know how you are. I'm everybody's included type of person. He's like, coming into this with that mindset, you got to be careful because
for sure.
These motherfuckers are backstab you. They're going to be chopping you up,
right?
All this and that.
Which is crazy to even think about.
Bro, and when I say I trust Omar, you know what I mean? Like, that's my dog. Everything he said to me was an understatement to how bad that shit was. And a lot of the times it wasn't directed at me, but just being in that vibe just wasn't for me. And it even into the coaching thing. That's why I'm only coaching babies. unless I get a high school job offer that makes sense, I'm not interested.
And is that mostly because of the parents?
It's everything. It's the whole youth sports.
Yeah.
At the babies, this is before they jump into youth sports, really. Mm-hmm. My kids are 10. They've only played CYO. This is their first AAU team, so they don't understand it yet. By the time they're 8th graders, they're going to be in the mix just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And then I don't want parts in that.
Mm-hmm.
This is not fun for me.
I understand.
It's stressful. I don't want no stress in my life.
It's gross.
Politics. It's disgusting.
It really is.
With some of these, how these parents are, the kids, the other coaches from the. And it's like,
terrible.
But I think the problem comes in, like you said earlier, who are you doing this for? This doesn't feed my ego. Winning a 10-year-old game doesn't make me feel
well, and I think that's the problem is that it feeds the parents' egos, right? Like Vino used to have a great my brother Vino used to have because Vino was the best point guard ever come out of San Francisco. So anytime somebody's kid was playing hoops, they would hit Vino up, be like, "Man, you got to come see him play, or you got to come see her play." And Vino would be like, "Oh, here we go again." And he would call them punk ass parents, which I think is the punk ass parents is the best because they would talk about how great the kid was, and they would go to the game and they would have 1 point and one rebound, and he'd be like, "They weak as fuck, yo." Yep. But these punk ass parents all think their kid is going pro, or all think their kids are going D1, and they're living through their children's,
The funny thing is, a lot of coaches coach like that. They coach to. Again, my son is into baseball. I know the basics of baseball, but I never played on a team. I played for fun with my friends, but he's only 9. So the coach is like, "Oh, you got to take him to the batting cages. Or you got to do this, you got to do that." And I'm like, well, I'm just trying to see if he likes the sport for real before I get into that. This is one of those leagues where everybody gets a trophy. They don't even keep score.
Right.
You know what I mean? So why are you coaching as if this is the World Series if we're not even keeping score? You keeping the same best player at first base because these kids are hitting all grounders to the infield, and you got to put your best thrower right here. It's smart if it mattered, but it doesn't matter.
No.
But because it's your ego, for whatever reason, and your son's on the team, and it.
But let's sometimes I wonder even about that philosophy, right? Like I get what you're saying in that situation, but sometimes I wonder about that, right? And I know I'm kind of contradicting myself a little bit. Like I do think there is. I never really shied away from it being competitive or for being about winning because that is life. And to me, sports is always at its best when it's a metaphor for life. Like when I would get on my daughter about shit, I would tell her, like, this ain't got nothing to do with sports. I'm talking to you about life. And I'm not going to have you punking out in life. I'm not going to have you failing in life because you're afraid. I'm not going to have you failing in life because you're not being confident.
Facts.
Right? So for like in that situation, and baseball is a tough one, right? Because it's such a hard sport and it's such a, so I do think there's value in parts of baseball being just about learning the game. But I also think, I don't know, I never was really crazy about not keeping score and not trying to win.
Okay, right. But it would be different if this was basketball.
Why?
Because my son only gets to play baseball at practice.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. That is the thing about baseball.
So me knowing that, I don't want you to kill my son's love for this sport before he even gains it.
I get that.
So
and it's easy to lose the love for baseball.
So when you put certain kids in the outfield and then all the coaches' sons are in the infield where all the action happens.
Yeah, no, I get it.
My son is out there bored. He's pissed
daisies,
because he wants to play third base.
I get it.
And then it's almost like if I wanted him to take it serious, they have travel baseball for his age.
No, I get that.
So for me, it's a conscious effort to put him in this.
That makes sense.
So he can learn the game and he can grow a love for the game. Because I had this talk with Josiah. I said, listen, how do you like? Because I could tell he not feeling this coach. I can just tell. But I know my son. So I'm having a talk. Before I talk to Josiah, I'm having a talk with his mom, and I'm like, look, this is how I'm feeling. But I'm also not the dad to. I don't even talk to the coaches. I say what's up. I don't complain. I don't do nothing. I don't even talk at the games. I don't put pressure on them. My whole thing is my son has a habit of he tries to be a perfect kid for me and his mom.
Right.
And in doing that, when he makes mistakes, he's really hard on himself.
Yeah.
So for me, and then not only that, his father was a Division I athlete. So in his head, he already does stuff like, oh, I want to play basketball. But then when I have a conversation, like, do you really want to play basketball? And he's like, well, I don't know yet. Well, you don't have to say you want to play basketball to appease me.
No.
So then when he meets people and how big he is, they ask him, oh, I know he got a crazy jump shot. I know he run basketball. I know you got him. But it's like, nah, he's never played basketball. I've never taught him anything basketball related in his whole life.
That's the same way I am with baseball.
Right. So So to go back to the original point, the reason why I was always good in sports. Athletically, I was just gifted. I just was a natural athlete. So any sport, I'm going to pick it up quick. You know what I mean?
But you also played every day outside.
Right.
Which is your point.
Right. But at the same time, it's like all these teams that I played on I started in the 5th grade playing on organized teams all the way up to high school. There's so many kids who stopped playing basketball just because they never even got an opportunity to play.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And it's, some kids peak late.
Yeah, no question.
So I'm saying all that to say, I don't want my son's love for this sport that he came to us with. He randomly said, I want to play baseball.
Right.
Shit, let's do it.
And you sought out a league that was like that. No, I get
purposely.
It.
So it was like
that. And that's especially important in baseball because it's so easy to be turned off by it, and it's a game of failure.
Right. So then in my head, it's like, okay, let's put him in it because there's a travel team. His mom has a friend who has a travel team his age, and they want him to play. But my whole thing is before we get too serious with this, and I'm sending him to batting coaches and this and that because I have the connections, but I want to make sure he actually likes this shit because then I don't want to be putting all this effort into getting him so good, and now he's burnt out by the time he's in high school. He don't want to play no more because I saw that happen too.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? And then there's so many. I'm sorry, but there's so many. There's going to be countless opportunities for me to teach him life lessons. So I don't think it has to be now. I think in some aspects, like as a coach, you have to be aware of everybody on the team.
You do. If you're going to be a good coach, for sure. Right.
So I think me as a parent and me as a coach conflicts a lot because I also don't want to be the guy that's like telling this coach how to coach or I coached here. You know who I am. I'm never that guy. You know what I mean? Because they don't know me. I'm from Oakland. This is in Fairfield.
Right.
They don't know me from a can of paint. So it's like, not only that, I understand that again. I had to tell his first coach just the first year, Josiah's a thinker. So if you can't, I taught him to question everything. So when you make it make sense to him, he'll get that shit done. But you can't just say, oh, when they hit the ball, get to your bag, get to your base. You can't just tell him that. You got to explain to him
the why.
Why you have to do this.
Well, a good coach should do that anyway.
But most of these volunteer fathers aren't.
This is true. Some of them don't even know.
Right.
And I mean, it's interesting because I hear what you're saying, and you know, I don't disagree with you necessarily, but I'll tell you an interesting story. So Napresha, who was a hooper, and there was times when, of course, just like with all parents, she was like feeling like I was being too hard on her. And then about like 2 or 3 years after she graduated college, she gonna hit me with, "You didn't push me hard enough." And I wish I had that when she was a senior in high school and say, "You're going to say this to me in fucking 5 years or 6 years or whatever it was." So if there's an interest in a sport like baseball, though, like baseball's a different sport. Baseball is something that you have to fucking work at and you have to get. So if he has an interest in it, and baseball's miserable if you're not
it's not going well.
If it's not going, it's miserable. It's just miserable.
Right. I hate to cut your wisdom. So
that was it.
That's my issue, right? Because the coach in me says, okay, I live in Oakland. His mom, it's his mom. She works. She takes him. She does a great job getting him to practice. But when I come up to you as a parent and say, "Hey, is there a reason why Josiah isn't getting a chance to bat?" and your response is, "Oh, I have no idea."
Yeah, that was crazy.
So now it's like, huh?
No, that was crazy.
Or I'm the type of coach that where I have, because there's always going to be talent gaps. Some kids got it, some kids don't.
Sure.
Some kids got it at an early age without having to work.
We've already established this team isn't that.
Right. So let's take my basketball team, for example. I had 3 kids on my
when
team.
You're coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last little season we had, I had 3 kids on my team that just, there was one kid was just a disconnect between he and I. I understood that though, because I know how to identify that. So I tell my assistant coach, who's a woman, I say, "Hey, look, I need you to get to him because when I'm talking to him, he's looking through me. I can see him looking through me.
Yeah.
He don't want to hear shit I got to say for whatever reason. I don't know what this kid's at home life is like.
Right,
I don't know.
You never know.
I don't know his relationship with men. I don't know none of that. But see, I
real.
factor all those things in.
Right.
I don't just push the kid to the side.
Right.
So then I have another kid who's just not that good. But nobody in his family knows shit about basketball. Right? So you know what I did? I broke down some film. And again, I know this is extensive and I can't expect all coaches to do stuff like this. But again, these are 10-year-olds.
Right.
I broke down some film with his mom, with him. Told her specifically what I need him to work on outside of practice. By the end of the year, I was able to give him an all-tournament medal.
But that's great. And I love that you did that. And you're right. A lot of coaches aren't going to do that. But why? And that gets to the initial thing we're talking about, right? Is the why are you even doing this? If you're gonna just do this to do the bare minimum or just to be there so you're with your kid, that's where it's like, what are we doing here? And that is the problem, right? Like, I think for me where it becomes like, I wish that everybody's intentions were better at when it comes to youth sports, right? You know, the kids get involved in it for whatever reason. The coaches that are involved are in it for whatever reasons, but the parents, the way the parents are acting in youth sports is like, this idea that your kids are going to get a D1 scholarship. I mean, it is so unlikely.
It's a small percentage.
So unfucking likely. You actually have a better chance of your child getting an academic scholarship, but we don't put that emphasis on getting them ready academically. It's way more likely.
There's a lot of luck that goes into.
There's a lot of luck, but also
hard work,
opportunity, DNA.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what I mean. It's all part of it. So, but just the whole fucking thing is just so mixed up and ugly. And so I get that you feel the way you do. I'm glad you are still coaching and doing things like that. The film thing is incredible. Like, I wish more people would do that, but. I don't envy you at all. I'm glad that I'm not in youth sports. And sometimes I say to myself, well, maybe you should be involved in youth sports, but I can't do it.
I don't blame you.
I went to a hoop game with my real good friend whose daughter was playing maybe 6 years ago, and it was just a reminder of how much I hated it.
Yeah.
And I love hoops. I prefer women's hoops sometimes over men.
Same here.
Because they play more of the game that we like, but. Yo, it's in a very bad place.
It is, man, and
put too much emphasis on sports culture in general.
Yeah, I think we haven't seen the worst of it yet. I feel like that's with most things, but I just think there's such a false sense of reality being sold to these parents and kids, and I think the bottom line of it is financial gain.
I think so too, but I think a lot of these parents didn't participate in sports. I mean, the best part of sports, in my opinion, was the team aspect that you got, the friendships that you made from it, the trying to achieve something as a group, right? And I think about coaches that I had, and even coaches that really challenged me, like there's something to be said for that, right? Being pushed by somebody and being, challenged to dig down deep. But ultimately, again, sports as a metaphor for life is where the value is, and I think we've really gone away from that.
Well, it's the business of youth
it's
sports.
The business of it,
youth sports.
For sure, there's that, but it's also what you talked about. It's just the self-promotion of it. It's the self-promotion of it, right? Like, it's just about you in that moment. It's not about your teammates.
But to take it a step further, I think that the fact that we can go to certain websites and see who the number one third grader in the country is ridiculous.
I didn't even know that.
No, you can.
That is insane.
They have rankings. That goes back to what I was saying.
Third grade?
Any level that they have out there. Yeah, from third, because that's usually starts at third grade. 8 and under. 8 and under all the way up to 17 and under, you can see rankings. And see, to go back to the eye test, right? And this is going to go back to the last conversation we had about the rings, right? My AAU team was one of the best AAU teams in the country. I'm not even talking about my high school team, not MAC. Yeah. I'm talking about high intensity.
Right.
We were beating everybody there. I'm watching the NBA, Kawhi Leonard, DeMarcus Cousins, Renardo Sidney, John Wall, all these dudes. We were playing against at the top levels and beating them,
right,
like convincingly.
Yeah.
And none of these coaches were recruiting us. None of these big-time coaches were recruiting us because why? The numbers weren't crazy. I probably averaged, like, my senior year in high school, I probably averaged, like, 9 points, bro.
Mm-hmm.
But, again, the eye test, you will see, oh, no, this kid can play.
Right.
Most of the time I played off the ball because I could shoot the ball so well. But the coaches that I connected with still recruited me as a point guard because they could see. Those are the only coaches I would even talk to. Because that let me know, okay, you're looking at the game. Even though I'm off the ball, but I'm still running this show.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Directing traffic. So to go back to the ring conversation, it's like I judge and rank people off of the eye test because just because you don't average 20 points a game, you can still, again, Draymond Green, you can impact the game in other ways outside of stats, right? And I just think when it comes to rankings and shit like that, these dudes just want the flashiest player, and then a lot of these coaches, they'll get the top 8 kids, and you're not teaching them shit.
Do you think they recruit kids based on their social media following to bring
today?
attention,
They do
to bring attention to the program?
You would almost be foolish not to.
Wow, that's wild, man.
You would almost be foolish not to,
That's
because at the end of the
wild.
day, it's a business. That's why I knew that they were gonna have to eventually give money. Give these kids a lot of
and
these
I'm
kids
glad
to get
they're
money.
doing
Right,
that. Yeah,
right.
But still, yeah, it's
But then that's a whole nother conversation.
it's a whole
because
nother
then now,
conversation. It is.
who's determining who's worth?
Yeah, right. And I don't. It's not always based on ability. Sometimes it's marketability.
It's the celebrity.
Yes, the celebrity.
You can be not that good and a pretty girl,
And
you'll be a first-round draft pick in the WNBA because of your social media following.
Wow.
And I think all of that shit.
Right, and that's what we're talking about. It goes away from the best parts of what sports is about.
And now let me take it another step further to reference back to the ring conversation and the value of us putting this winning mentality into players that might not have it. A lot of these dudes grow up playing games that don't mean shit. Because they're traveling from team to team. They're going to play. Right. They're playing in Vegas. There's a bunch of tournaments at once. I know kids that be playing in 3 different tournaments for 3 different teams at one time. You think they give a fuck about that win or loss?
No.
It don't matter because I got another game at 2:00 anyway.
Right.
So now that's not something you can turn on and off to play winning basketball.
No.
That's something that you're taught and it's habitual. I'm not going to take a bad shot because I know every possession counts. You see what I'm saying? So it's like when you become an NBA player and you wonder on low management or why doesn't Anthony Davis street clothes and all this shit? These niggas want to go play video games.
But then you got players like the kid Anthony Edwards, who I think has all of that stuff that we love in him. I think all he wants to do is win.
But think about
he comes from that too.
But he stands out. At one point, everybody was like that.
No, I know. No,
that was the people who didn't want to win. They stood out. But now they're the majority, and
that's wild.
But even this, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but even this,
but that's real.
People who play defense in the NBA, playing the defense is now a specialty.
It is.
You're looked at as a specialist because you play defense. Think about that.
Yeah, a lot of times there was. I mean, that's all. It's more now, but that's always been kind of the thing. I think you players like Bobby Jones.
Well, those are the people who locked up.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
there's always been the NBA's always had guys who were just all offense. George Gervin, you know what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Isaiah Thomas.
Well, okay. For example, I had a kid come play with my team one tournament, right? And I'm not gonna say the team he played for usually, but it's an elite team. Mm-hmm. He didn't even know basic help side principles.
That's great.
And my kids who have never played AAU, they only play CYO. They're in help side. They're on the midline. They're talking. They got their fingers pointing. Mm-hmm. And this kid is hugged up on the weak side, not even facing the ball. I can't coach kids like that. That's what drives me crazy.
No, it would drive me crazy.
Because I shell drill with my 10-year-olds every day.
You have to. And that's why y'all win.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. But it's like, so it's hard for me to be, even when I became a high school coach, it's like, even college for real. But as a high school coach, I'm having these kids coming in the tryouts or whatever you want to call it, and they can't even do a 3-man weave. And so it's like, how many years have you been playing basketball? Oh, since I was in the 5th grade. And none of your coaches ever had you do 3-man weave in practice.
And the answer is no?
Yes.
Wow.
Imagine teaching a varsity kid 3-man weave.
That is crazy, yo.
I swear I'm not making that up.
I mean, weave is fun anyway.
It's a warm-up drill.
It's a warm-up drill, and it teaches you to not fuck.
If you got bounced, you're going to be dunking. If you, back in when slapping the backboard was a big deal, that was our chance to do that. Yeah. And it's like, these kids, it's crazy, bro. They just want to sidestep and shoot threes.
Wow. Damn, that's crazy, man. Yeah, no, it's I think you're probably right. I don't see it's probably going to get worse and worse and worse.
But I think, because I was having this conversation too the other day, it's like, I think basketball, and you would almost say they were foolish not to do it, but I think the NBA in particular is just becoming more entertainment based.
I mean, it's always been that, but what do you mean? Like, what do you mean specifically?
Oh, I think I sent it to you actually. I think Jabari Parker said it.
Yeah,
it's like
I saw that.
shooting mid range is frowned upon.
It
shooting
is.
mid range jump shots is frowned upon
Right.
because of analytics and stuff.
Because of analytics, yeah.
So the threes in it. It's like threes are dunks. You know what I mean? And the threes are exciting because everybody's shooting from super far now, and everybody can shoot. Dunks are always going to be exciting, obviously, and I just don't understand how. That's just hard for me to watch, bro.
No, and there's where we can, and that's the big discussion in baseball, is analytics versus. The Giants are a perfect example of that. There was just an article written by Tom Verducci about how if the Giants are the future of baseball, I want no part of it, because the Giants are all about analytics, all about platoon matchups, all
How do you
about.
feel?
I agree. I can't stand it. Like I hate it. Like there's.
I don't understand how analytics works in baseball though.
That's a whole discussion, but you should watch Moneyball, the movie Moneyball. Mm-hmm. It gets into it a little bit, but in the old days, there were 3 statistics that mattered: batting average, runs batted in, and home runs, and that's how players were measured. And over time, they realized, well, right, but the biggest thing is, how do you score a run? Well, you get people on base. So on base percentage became a big deal, right? So you might have a guy who hits 250, but his on base percentage, because he has a good eye, he gets on base at a 350 clip. So 35% of the time he gets on base, but his batting average is 250. Well, he's a valuable player because he's on base 35% of the time. He only gets a hit 25% of the time.
But when he does, he gets on base.
But he gets on base, and that's how you. And then the reason slugging position matters because how do you score runs? You get on base, and somebody hits an extra base hit. Slugging percentage is extra base hit. Yeah, so doubles, yeah. So slugging percentage is how many doubles, triples, and home runs out of your hits are. So if you have, a combination of 5 hits that are extra base hits out of 10 at bats, you have a 500 slugging. Oh. So 50% of the time when you get a hit, it isn't just a single, it's an extra base. And that's usually what scores people. Either they score or you're in scoring position. Right? Okay. On base percentage, same thing. You get on base. That's valuable for your team. Then you have on base plus slugging percentage, OPS, right? So there's all these things, and then there's things about, then it gets into the fucking weeds when you're talking about pitchers and their spin rate on the baseball. And it used to be earned run average was the only thing that mattered. And now, like with the Giants, the big thing is, here's a perfect example. It's exciting to see a pitcher take the mound and go deep into the game, 7, 8, 9 innings, and just try to shut a lineup down for 3 or 4 times. They don't do that no more. They have all these pitchers come in every few innings, and it's just like
because of analytics.
Analytics.
Wow, I never knew that.
And then in terms of batters, right? You always want to have a right-handed batter against a left-handed pitcher, or a left-handed batter against a right-handed pitcher, because if you're the batter and you're facing the way you are, that's a right-handed hitter. If I'm throwing here, you don't pick the ball up to here. If I'm throwing here, you pick it up right away. So these are the little things that go on, right? But where the problem is from a consumer standpoint, when you're watching the game, you want to root for somebody for the whole game. Right. You don't want to have guys shuttling in and shuttling out, new guy on the mound, new guy, because you don't get the investment in the player. Stolen bases is another thing. They made the bases bigger.
Really?
Yeah. They made the bases this year. They made the bases bigger because they're trying to bring back, because the stolen base went away, because the analytics said it was a low percentage thing. But when you think of Ricky Henderson and Vince Coleman and Tim Raines and all these players that used to be exciting when Ricky was fucking stealing bases, they would call it a Ricky triple. He would walk and the motherfucker be on third base in a few pitches because he was still second and still third. That's exciting. Yeah. But the stolen base went away because the analytics said it was low percentage.
So they made the bases
bigger to try to make it more incentive, and the stolen base is coming back. they put the pitch clock in now to try to speed up the game, and it was a very good thing to do because.
So how long do you have to throw the pitch?
20 seconds.
Really?
Yeah, and so.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it took the game from 3 hours and 15 minutes down to 2.5.
Wow.
3 hours and 15 minutes down to 2 hours and 30 minutes. And it's a big deal. Like when we go to the game on a weekday, motherfucker can't be out there for 3 hours, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then you talk about the World Baseball Classic, which you watched. I had you watching that.
Exciting.
That shit was exciting. They didn't have the pitch clock in. But nobody minded it because it was so exciting. So when you get into playoff baseball and World Series, then it gets exciting. But the analytics definitely.
So let me ask you this, and I want to wrap this up soon. But my complaints about basketball, our complaints, because we share a lot of the same complaints about basketball. Our complaints about basketball. Seemingly, they are starting to say that overseas is starting to catch up with us, and I mean, it seems like I mean, some of the most dominant players in the league are from overseas.
A good percentage,
right? So we talk about the World Baseball Classic. Are the analytics affecting how the rest of the world stands up against the U.S. in baseball? When I say the U.S., I mean the major league, like the MLB, the actual league.
It's interesting because Japan is, Japan, I think, definitely gets into that, but I don't think the Latin teams do. And
so Japan does analytics too?
I believe that. I mean, I think everyone does it to a certain degree, but the Latin game is more passionate and more like if you go to a game in the Dominican, it's a fucking party. And that's another thing, right? The American baseball has always been about don't show anybody up, don't show any emotion. You're supposed to just be, but thankfully, the Latin players have come in and made more fun to it, and then everybody's starting to come around. Like when you hit a homer and watch it, in the old days, if you hit a homer and watched it, the next time you play, you're getting a fucking ear hole. Your pitcher's throwing at your helmet. You don't watch your home run back in the old days. Now, motherfuckers hit home runs or watch
bat flipping,
and that's how it should be. It should be fun.
Right.
But back in the day, you didn't do that. But so I think the answer to your question is that I think analytics is worldwide, but I think that there's still a struggle, and it doesn't necessarily go by country. It goes by this manager, this player, that player. It's player by player, manager by manager, organization by organization. But it's there, and it's not going away. There's just a fight now for the soul of baseball is, are we going to let the math nerds take everything away from baseball? There has to be the human element. There has to be because math isn't compelling.
Right.
Unless
you're into it.
Unless you're into it, right. But you should watch Moneyball because that's sort of that Billy Beane and the A's were the first ones to sort of really take it to the extreme because they were trying to keep the payroll down.
Gotcha.
So they were getting players. They were finding players that would perform certain functions.
Got you.
Mathematically.
So how many? If you had to put it in percentages, and I know you probably won't know for sure, but what percentage of the MLB do you think is foreigners? Is it a high percentage?
Oh yeah, it's fucking really high.
That's what I figured.
It's really and the getting back to our youth sports thing, the American blacks in baseball has gone from like in the 70s, I think it was 20-something% down to like 4%. Because black kids in the cities don't play baseball.
Right.
Sometimes it's because fields, sometimes because of its equipment. Sometimes just because, and not even just for blacks. I did the same thing. Wasn't no girls at the baseball game.
That's
you know what I mean?
Point.
Baseball is a game that it's just not as exciting. It doesn't have the Friday night lights, or it doesn't have the excitement that going to the hoop gym has. But it's tons. I mean, you got the Latin players, the Japanese players. Now you got players from the Netherlands, Bahamas. It's a global sport now. I don't know what the percentages are, but it'd be interesting to know.
This is my last question. Do you think, because I know at one point baseball was like, it was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And I know it took a dip. Mm-hmm. Right? Is it on the ascension again?
It's interesting because, it was America's game for years and years and years. Football clearly is now. But Monty Jones had a really interesting piece on baseball and the popularity of baseball. We don't think it's as popular as it is. It's really popular,
right?
And even teams like the A's are making money hand over fist It is a fucking juggernaut financially.
Has it always been, or is it on the?
It's on the.
It's on the up.
It's on the up. It's less popular TV viewing wise. Football's king. Football's the number one television show. Period. Football games like this coming game against the Niners and Cowboys, the numbers are gonna be crazy.
Yeah, ridiculous.
They're gonna be ridiculous. Dion's games are ridiculous.
Right.
You know, football is king for sure, and basketball has surpassed baseball on a lot of. But somebody's watching baseball because when you like that Bomani Jones thing, they're making a shit ton of money.
I wonder how much of that, and this is just me guessing. I wonder how much of that plays a part in because of the fitted caps. Do you think that's a big thing?
I think it all is. I think
baseball. Everybody wears baseball hats.
Yeah.
I know people that wear the hats and don't even know what team they wear.
Oh, for sure.
As long as it go with the fit.
That's part of it. I don't. You know, it's
that's interesting to me.
It is interesting. I mean, and it's you think it's not as popular as it is, but I think that's part of it. And yeah, I don't know how to. But I would recommend that Bomani Jones piece. It was really, really interesting. I was like, damn, and it made the A's situation even more fucked up because they're making money. They don't need to leave. They're making a fuck ton of money. They're just not spending any money.
Right.
And maybe if they spent money, built a stadium here, they'd make more money. The A's have always been an incredible organization. Right. I mean, as a Giants fan growing up in the 70s and 80s, the A's were the fucking standard. The Giants were horrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I think that was a dope little back and forth.
Yeah.
We got a lot of insight.
Yep.
I learned a lot about baseball that I didn't know.
I know, right? You always get me to talk about baseball.
I know, but I don't know a lot of that stuff.
Most people don't. But baseball is a sport that if you give it a chance, and it's really fun, man.
I appreciate it, man. That's we